Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world with me, Deepika. Coming up in the next half an hour. Trump pledges for a possible deal between Russia and Ukraine in upcoming talks with Putin on Friday. Hints Kyiv and Moscow will have to swap some land for peace. European Union says Ukraine should have freedom to decide its future. Trump signs order extending China tariff truce by 90 days. US tariffs on China reduced to 30%, while China will maintain tariffs on US goods at 10%. Trump opens door to Nvidia selling advanced AI chips to China after negotiating a deal for a share of 15%. And climate change serving global ultimatum as wildfires blaze through parts of Europe after heat wave hits, while others battling with torrential rains and floods. Good afternoon to all the viewers joining us at this afternoon broadcast. To begin with the United States, US President Donald Trump has described his upcoming summit with Vladimir Putin as a feel-out meeting to gauge his ideas for ending the Ukraine conflict. Trump has invited his Russian counterpart to Alaska on Friday, which is the first face-to-face meeting between the two countries' presidents since the conflict began in February 2022. While Zelensky will not be in attendance, Trump noted that he would immediately relay the details of the conversation to the Ukrainian leader. Zelensky has ruled out ceding territory seized by force, but Trump said he was a little bothered by Zelensky's stance and insisted land swaps would need to take place. While sounding optimistic that a ceasefire could be reached, Trump noted that he had been let down by Putin in the past. He also repeated his claim that the war would have never begun had he been in the office during the last term.
I expect to have a meeting with Putin that I think it'll be good, but it might be bad. And I'm here for one reason, to get rid of a war that somebody else started. Should have never happened. And if I could end it, great. Complex war, a lot of bad blood, But Zelensky's been there for 3.5 years. So if you put him in a room, now I will say this, ultimately I'm going to put the two of them in a room. I'll be there or won't be there. And I think it'll get solved.
Meanwhile, 26 European heads of state and government backed Ukraine. The European Union in a statement said that Ukrainians must have the freedom to decide their future. The statement added a diplomatic solution must protect Ukrainian and European interests. The leaders said meaningful negotiations can only be possible in the context of a ceasefire or reduction of hostilities. The statement was endorsed by leaders of all European Union members except Hungary. Now let's take a look at previous historic encounters between the two nuclear powers, which is the United States of America and the Russian Federation in this report. Nikita Khrushchev's visit was significant as it marked the first time a Soviet leader had traveled to the US. In Hollywood, he delivered one of his legendary rants to an audience that included Marilyn Monroe and Elizabeth Taylor. The summit concluded with a statement that the two superpowers worked towards talks on disarmament and on the status of Berlin that the Cold War had divided. In 1961, the summit at the former Imperial Palace in Vienna was an icy encounter befitting the Cold War era, made chillier by the failed US Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba that happened shortly before. Berlin was top of the agenda, but 2 months later, the wall dividing the city would be built. A year later, the Cuban Missiles Crisis brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. The Vietnam War cast a long shadow over the Moscow summit that would prove key in ushering in the period of détente between the two superpowers, as they signed the SALT and ABM weapons control treaties. In a joint declaration, Richard Nixon and Leonid said peaceful coexistence was the only basis for mutual relations in a nuclear age. The two men met twice more while they were in power, underlining that thaw in ties. But relations would later chill again with the Soviet invasion of of Afghanistan in the year 1979. In 4 years, Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev had four summits. In their first encounter, Reagan was still berating the evil empire, suggested he and Gorbachev go for a walk to get some fresh air by Lake Geneva. When they returned, the talk was of chemistry. Reagan found Gorbachev very comfortably, very easy to be with. At the third of four summits in December 1987, both the powers agreed a treaty to eliminate their short and intermediate range nuclear missiles. Boris Yeltsin was welcomed as a friend by his American host George Bush in February 1992 during his first visit to the United States since the Soviet Union's collapse. The two were at pains to forge a close personal relationship as a basis for economic cooperation between their countries, but also to continue reducing their nuclear arsenals. Bill Clinton and Yeltsin held eight summits during their terms of office that overlapped during most of the 1990s. In Hyde Park Summit, where at times the two men had many disagreements over the years, seemed to get on like old friends. The summit brought no breakthrough agreements, but a remark at a news conference lightened the mood and caused Clinton to burst into uncontrollable spasms of laughter. Trump sparked outrage across the political divide in Washington at his inaugural summit with Putin in Helsinki when he backed Russian denials of meddling in the election that brought him to power. The pair championed a fresh start in relationship, coming out of their meeting expressing a desire to talk again on global challenges after discussing an array of issues from Syria, Ukraine, and China to trade tariffs and the size of their nuclear arsenals. Now, Biden and Putin, who engaged in a war of words since shortly after the US president took office in January 2021, tellingly did not hold a joint press conference after 3.5 hours of talks in Geneva. However, they agreed to return the ambassadors to each other's capital that had been withdrawn over Biden's allegations that Russia tried to undermine his candidacy in the 2020 election. Putin said he sensed no animosity from the man who had previously called him a killer, while Biden agreed the talks had been constructive. Aarti Rana's report for DD India. The United States on Monday extended a tariff truce with China by another 90 days. US President Donald Trump signed an executive order late on Monday, delaying the start of higher tariffs on Chinese goods until mid-November. The executive orders were signed hours before a 90-day halt of steeper levies between Washington and Beijing was due to expire. US President, in a post on social media, confirmed that he ordered a 90-day tariff truce to delay reimposition of higher levies on Chinese goods. He further wrote that all other elements of the agreement will remain the same. The new order prevents US tariffs on Chinese goods from shooting up to 145%, while Chinese tariffs on the US goods were set to hit 125%. Rates that would have resulted in a virtual trade embargo between the two countries. While the United States and China slapped escalating tariffs on each other's products this year, bringing them to prohibitive triple-digit levels and snarling trade, both the countries in May agreed to temporarily lower them. As part of their May truce, fresh US tariffs targeting China were reduced to 30%, and the corresponding level from China was cut to 10%. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung and US President Donald Trump will hold their first summit meeting on the 25th of August in Washington to discuss strengthening the bilateral alliance and economic security partnership. Lee, who was elected the president in a snap election in June, has made it a top priority to help his export-dependent country navigate the dramatic changes in the global trading environment triggered by Trump's tariff policies. Trump announced on 30th of July the countries had reached a trade deal that would subject South Korean goods to 15% import duties, lowering the tariff he had initially set against one of America's top trading partners. In return, Trump has said South Korea will announce investment plans at the upcoming summit and that Seoul had committed to making $350 billion of investments to be selected by him. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and Chinese President Xi Jinping held a pivotal hour-long call on Monday, reinforcing BRICS' role in defending multilateralism against US tariff. Lula, responding to Trump's anti-American label and tariff threats, rallied BRICS for a united stance. She emphasized BRICS as a global South consensus platform, with China and Brazil leading in unity. They explored new trade opportunities, especially in agriculture, as China absorbs Brazil's soybeans and coffee amid US tariff barriers. She also hailed historic ties, urging collaboration on global challenges like Ukraine, signaling a robust BRICS counter to unilateral trade policies. The US and China engaged in a tense verbal exchange on Monday during a UN Security Council session on maritime security. During the council meeting, Panama President Jose Raul Mulino emphasizes that the council's role is not only to reduce the activities of criminal terrorist groups, but it is also to protect peace among the nations. US Representative Dorothy Shea emphasized the Panama Canal's critical role as one of the world's great instruments of commerce and economic security, citing its construction by Washington and close bilateral partnership with the Central American nation on maritime security. Shea also voiced deep concerns about China's outsized influence over the Panama Canal area, especially over critical infrastructure and port operations. Meanwhile, China's Ambassador Fu Kong countered sharply, accusing the US of repeatedly making unwarranted accusations and smearing Beijing. The Chinese envoy then accused the US of being the biggest disruptor of peace and stability in the South China Sea, citing its deployment of offensive weaponry and military exercises. A Chinese Navy ship and a China Coast Guard vessel collided near the disputed Scarborough Shoal while pursuing a Philippine patrol vessel. The video released by the Philippine Coast Guard showed the China Coast Guard ship CCG 3104 marking a sharp turn across the bow of Chinese PLA Navy ship, resulting in an impact that damaged both the vessels. The collision occurred as the Chinese ship tried to block the Philippine vessel BRP Suluan that was escorting boats delivering aid to Filipino fishermen. The Philippine Coast Guard said it offered medical assistance and recovery support but received no response. Beijing said its maritime forces acted in accordance with the law to monitor and control the Philippine ships but did not address the collision. Scarborough Shoal, claimed by both China and the Philippines, has been a flashpoint in the South China Sea where tensions have risen over competing territorial claims. Now, relatives and friends of deceased Colombian senator and presidential hopeful Miguel Uribe gathered at the Congress building in Bogota on Monday for a farewell ceremony. Speaking at the ceremony, Uribe's wife, Claudia Tarazona, described him as a wonderful man who dreamt of peace and unity in Colombia. Colombians to reject violence and revenge as well, she further urged. The mortal remains of Uribe will remain at Congress in Bogota for public viewing until Wednesday. 39 years old Uribe had been vying for his party's candidacy in the upcoming presidential elections in 2026, but died 2 months after being shot in the head at a campaign rally. 6 people have been arrested over the shooting so far. The attack was the worst outbreak of political violence in some 2 decades. 4 presidential candidates were assassinated during the first phase of the violence in 1980s and 1990s under Escobar, who terrorized citizens of Bogota, Medellin and elsewhere with a campaign of bombings. Meanwhile, the Colombian's flag is flown at half-mast in Bogota following the death of presidential candidate Miguel Uribe. The flag is displayed at half-mast outside the presidential palace and other locations as a sign of national mourning. A small plane crashed into another stationary aircraft at Kalispell City Airport in Montana, triggering a huge fireball and sending smoke billowing into the sky, with 2 passengers suffering minor injuries. Shocking video shows the giant fireball exploding into a massive pillowy cloud of black smoke into the Montana sky. Citing local officials, local media reported that the crash occurred when a plane that was landing hit another on the runway. Time to take a short break, but still to come on the other side. Har Ghar Tiranga spirit soars in Agartala as Chief Minister Manik Saha leads Independence Day campaign. India's Namrata Batra creates history, secures first ever World Games Wushu medal with victory in women's Sanda 52 kg final event. And renowned sand artist Sudarshan Patnaik vows beach goers at Puri Beach with mesmerizing artwork on World Elephant Day.
US launch a bombing campaign against Iran. The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you.
Exactly like save your country.
You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India Live. Now, Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister Simon Harris met the members of the Indian community in Dublin on Monday to reassure them in the face of a string of attacks on Indian nationals. The Ireland Deputy Prime Minister condemned the attacks on Indians as despicable act of violence. Harris, who is also the Foreign Minister, thanked the Indian community for their very positive contribution towards Ireland. Ireland's Foreign Ministry said in a social media post that Harris committed to continuing to work with Minister for Migration and others to support Ireland's migrant communities. Harris said on social media last week that Ireland will never ever tolerate racism, while thanking the Indian community for their contributions to Ireland in so many ways. The Garda, or Ireland State Police Force, is now meanwhile investigating some of the attacks on Indians as possible hate crimes. Now, in line with India's Independence Day celebrations, Har Ghar Tiranga campaign saw enthusiastic participation from across the country. Delhi Chief Minister Rekha Gupta flagged off the Tiranga Cyclathon for girls on Tuesday ahead of India's 79th day Independence Day celebration. The event featured thousands of girls cycling to mark the occasion and promote progress and unity. A massive Tiranga Yatra rally featuring a 1,508-meter long Indian national flag was organized in Jammu and Kashmir's Doda district on Monday, which is the longest ever carried throughout the district. The flag was held by hundreds of school students. The rally drew massive participation and transformed the town street into a sea of saffron, white and green. Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha also flagged off Tiranga Yatra at iconic Dal Lake ahead of the 79th Independence Day celebrations. Chief Minister of Tripura, Manik Saha, visited homes in Gandhighat, Bardauli Assembly constituency, urging the citizens to proudly hoist the tricolour. The event aimed at promoting unity and patriotism among the citizens ahead of the Independence Day celebrations. Lucknow also witnessed a vibrant Tiranga Yatra on Monday. The procession featured participants carrying the national flag and chanting patriotic slogans as they marched through key city routes. The initiative encourages people to display the national flag at homes and establishments from the 13th till the 15th of August, honouring the sacrifices of freedom fighters. And now let's get you the latest from the ongoing Parliament's monsoon session. Speaker of the lower house of Indian Parliament, Om Birla, on Tuesday announced a 3-member panel to probe allegations against Justice Yashwant Verma as the move to impeach him gains pace. The decision was taken during the discussion on impeachment of Allahabad High Court Judge Justice Yashwant Verma. That's the breaking news we are getting you from the ongoing monsoon session of the Parliament, and this is the decision by Om Birla, the chair of the House. Moving on, India's Home Minister Amit Shah congratulated the security forces, Sri Amarnath Ji Shrine Board, Jammu and Kashmir administration for their contribution in making the pilgrimage safe and smooth. The Home Minister in a post on social media platform said, and I quote him, that more than 400,000 devotees visited Sri Amarnath Ji this year to pay obeisance at the cave shrine. He also congratulated all the security forces, Sri Amarnath Ji Shrine Board and Jammu and Kashmir's administration, along with voluntary organizations for their contribution in making the pilgrimage safe and smooth place. He further said everybody's contribution in making this holy pilgrimage was successful and commendable, along with being unique. And now let's get you weather updates. First up from India. Heavy rainfall lashed several parts of Delhi. India's meteorological department has issued a yellow alert for Tuesday, as well as forecast of thunderstorm with rain. The Met Department has predicted light showers in Delhi NCR region till the 13th of August. Moderated rainfall is also predicted on the 14th and 17th of August. In Himachal Pradesh, the local weather office issued an orange warning for heavy to very heavy rain at several places till Thursday, while Shimla found itself covered under a blanket of fog with visibility reduced to only a few meters. More than 16 lakh people have been affected by floods in Bihar, where several rivers are in spate due to torrential rainfall. A total of 32 teams of the NDRF and the SDRF have been engaged in the rescue operations. The monsoon activity is expected to gain strength over Kerala, albeit not an intense rainfall activity, with the change in the weather system in the Bay of Bengal. The overall shortfall in rain in Kerala from the 1st of June till this time has now increased to 15%. The Meteorological Department on Monday issued a red alert for 3 districts of Uttarakhand, including Uttarkashi, Chamoli and Rudraprayag for the next 3 hours, warning of very heavy rain. The alert comes alongside a separate forecast of heavy rain across Uttarakhand till the 15th of August. District Magistrate Prateek Jain said the Kedarnath Yatra has been suspended for the next 3 days in view of pilgrims' safety. Uttarakhand has been dealing with the aftermath of a devastating mudslide and flash flood that tore through Dharali Bazaar last week, razing hotels and homestays and sweeping away all that came in its way, leaving behind a trail of destruction. Efforts are underway to rescue and rehabilitate people affected by the natural disaster. Heat waves have plagued Europe. Many towns and cities in France, Italy and the Balkans were put on red alert due to the heat conditions. Wildfires fanned by strong winds forced the evacuations of thousands of people throughout the continent and threatened popular tourist sites in Turkey and Spain. Nepal is facing mid-monsoon drought in the Terai region and floods in the hills that led environmental experts and Kathmandu's valley think tanks to discuss the issue and come up with a solution. In a discussion program on the growing climate crisis, experts shared that a cross-border early warning system is essential to reduce the risk and damages caused by the climate crisis. Speakers at the organized interaction on the topic called Growing Climate Crisis highlighted that climate-related disasters are increasing the loss of life and property due to a lack of international information communication and inter-agency coordination. The current situation is a tool to take climate change seriously and address the need to establish a special body for international data sharing to prevent multiple disasters and minimize the damage. Moving on. Every year on the 12th of August, the world comes together to mark the World Elephant Day, a global event dedicated to raising awareness about the plight of elephants and the urgent need for their protection. World Elephant Day highlights the urgency of coordinated conservation actions, stricter anti-poaching laws, and community-based initiatives to ensure these pack terms survive for future generations. Renowned sand artist Sudarshan Patnaik wowed the beachgoers at Puri Beach. Carving a stunning 12-foot-long sand sculpture of the elephant, Patnaik wrote the heartfelt message, "Save my habitat," etched beside it. Patnaik's artwork highlights the urgent need to protect elephants and their homes. Not only was Patnaik's sandy tribute both beautiful and meaningful, but also drew crowd and sparked conversations about conservation. On to business updates now. Tech giant Nvidia made an unprecedented deal with the United States administration to keep selling chips to China. US President Donald Trump on Monday confirmed reports that semiconductor giant Nvidia would pay the United States 15% of its revenues from sales of certain artificial intelligence chips to China. As per the deal, Nvidia will share up to $3 billion in revenue with the US government this fiscal year to sell its H20 chips in China. Silicon Valley-based AMD will also pay 15% of revenue on Chinese sales of its MI308 chips, which it previously barred from exporting to the country. Nvidia developed the H20 chip and AMD developed the MI308 chip specially for the Chinese market. In April, the Trump administration unexpectedly banned Nvidia from exporting H20 chips to China, causing Nvidia to lose billions and its stock to fall sharply. The export ban was lifted in July, but the US lawmakers still worry about China's AI development. And India's Namrata Batra created history by reaching women's Sanda 52 kg final at 2025 World Games in Chengdu, China on Monday. Namrata beat Philippines' Krisan Faith Culedo by 2-0 to assure India of its first ever World Games medal in the sport of wushu. With this victory, Namrata is guaranteed of at least a silver medal. Her gold medal match will take place on Tuesday. And that's all for this edition of DD India Live. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Deepika Mehta, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India. Namaskar.